Welcome to another on the road version of of the QB Power Hour. I'm on location in a hotel room. That's why I blurred out. My dog's sleeping behind me, somewhere in Spokane, Washington. That's where I'm at today. And Michelle, of course, is joining us from her lakeside house. But today we're continuing our series, QBO Advanced Feature Deep Dive, entering batch transactions and importing invoices. So this is continuing the series of diving a little deeper into the QBO Advanced features. Of course, they're all those features have now made their way into QBOA, into the Your Books. So we want to make sure that you have an inside look, I guess, at these features, because they're now in your books. You can use them in your practice and maybe recommend them to your client. So Michelle, tell us a little about yourself.
Hi, everybody. Michelle Long, CPA, MBA, and entrepreneurship, owner of Long for Success. I've been a trainer for Intuit since 2007, and I really enjoy that. And I can't wait for everybody to get back on the road. Hopefully next year we'll be on the road doing these live training events again. But love co-hosting QB Power Hour with Dan. I would encourage you all to join us in the Facebook group there. We've got over 10,000 members in the Facebook group, and it's a very widely active group, I guess I should say. You get a good diverse viewpoints and opinions, and lots of help when you have any questions from your peers, and lots of fun too. So that's enough about me. Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Dan DeLong, co-host here. Formerly worked at Intuit for about 18 years. My projects are working on the QBO for Dummies. I'm the technical editor there and chief content creator at schoolofbookkeeping.com. So yeah, a little bit about the QB Power Hour. It's of course this time every. I'm gonna be totally messed up with the time changes because as I go through the different time zones here, because I'm heading east, and this will be playing havoc with my calendar, I'm sure. But we're every other Tuesday at 12 noon Eastern. Few of the upcoming episodes, we're going to have Heather Satterley joining us next time, where she is. If you don't know anything about Heather, she is really in depth with using Zapier and making things a little bit more efficient for you and your practice. And so she'll be coming on and be right around Independence Day, so you'll be able to declare your independence from busy work with Zapier. Heather's going to be joining us, and then we'll have Relay coming back on to talk about some of the AP enhancements that has come in. They've joined us in the past, and they are a business bank, and they have taken some of the solutions that they have done that they've realized that people struggle with, and put them on the shoulders of the bank. So they've made some options there. And then we'll finally be finishing up with the advanced feature deep dive. We did have to make some changes to the agenda because we're going to have a little QB Power Hour reunion with Hector Garcia will be joining us. But because of the tax deadline moving and everything, it played havoc with the days that we had aligned. So that was a little bit of a challenge there. So we appreciate you giving us a little grace there on the feature or the agenda that we were having here. But he'll be here in August 3rd to talk about the reporting enhancements that are in QuickBooks Online Advanced. So of course there's the links there for the handouts. You can get all the handouts of prior Power Hours listed there. The recordings are on our YouTube channel, and of course you can listen to us on the go with the podcast. So our agenda today is we're going to talk about batch transactions. So this is a feature that's only available in Advanced, being able to batch enter transactions. So we'll talk about what you can batch enter. So invoices, and that has some options that you have with create, modify, and deleting. Bank deposits, you can batch enter checks, expenses, and bills. And then we'll talk a little bit about importing invoices. These are, again, only features that you have in QBO Advanced. So I'm going to be doing most of the conceptual talking, and then Michelle is going to dive in and we'll do some demonstrations there. So hopefully Casey, the dog there, will behave himself. But mine's like almost dead behind me.
And I've got a puppy trying to eat my desk and eat everything else in sight over here. So hopefully he'll keep quiet.
Right. And so if you have any questions, as there's anything that you see, put it in the Q&A portion of the Zoom window there. That helps us see those when they pop up. Because I am on location, I am only working with one monitor, which makes it just a little bit more challenging to manage the chat, the Q&A, and run the slides and the polls. So so we're trying to do it all at once here. And Michelle and I were just talking about getting another like travel monitor or something like that will help me out. So we'll see next time if I've got more real estate space to work with. All right, so let's start off with a poll. All right, I can't see because everything's popping up in the way. What is the percentage of your clients who use QBO Advanced? This is all percentage, not number of clients, 1 to 25, or it's just broken down into quarterly sections there. So 1 to 25, 26 to 50, and this does not include yourself, right? So we all know that if you're using QBOA, it's got Advanced in it. So what do you think there? Now, Michelle, did you see any questions pop up there? I think I see something. Oh, somebody says I use the hotel TV as a second monitor. It's sitting right here. I should have thought of that.
Dan, somebody wants to know what camera you are using.
Oh, it is a Logitech 920 is the model number. Yeah, I like it. It does a pretty good job for me, except for the reflection in my glasses. Yeah, somebody asked a question there. What is QBOA? QBOA is QuickBooks Online Accountant. So not to be confused with QBOA QuickBooks Online Advanced. So let me go ahead and end the poll, and I'll share it. So yeah, it looks like mostly between 1 to 25%. So that's leading our poll today. So that's great. So let's go ahead and get started here. All right, so we're going to talk about batch transactions first, where you can enter, and for some transactions you can modify them. So this really helps out a lot when to increase efficiencies when it comes to entering a lot of transactions. So to get to batch transactions, you just go to the plus new button in the upper left, and then there's an option under other for batch transactions there. And when you're there, you can choose the different types of transactions to enter. So invoices, bank deposits, sales receipts, checks, expenses, and bills. And then depending on the transaction type, you may have an action. Create, modify, delete is the only actions that you can do with regards to invoicing. So here's just kind of an example of kind of the way that Intuit would kind of tackle some of these problems. So we'll come up with a customer problem and then try to make an ideal state of that. So kind of thinking of things, accountants and bookkeepers and their clients, they need a way to process lots of bills and transactions, but didn't have a way to do so. Kind of thinking that maybe a mid-market company who has a person who is their sole job is to enter in accounts payable transactions. Be nice if they had a way to enter those in bulk rather than just one at a time. So QBO Advanced is now have an option for you to batch process those transactions in, so that will allow you to increase the productivity. I think the statistic throw around is that it's 37%. You get 37% more work done when you're using the batch transactions, because of course you can edit those in or enter those in bulk, right? So this is just kind of looking at entering in a bill, and it's very Excel based, right? So it looks just like an Excel template or worksheet, and you can play around with some of those options. You can customize the column. So every column that's available here, you just check, click on, if I go back one slide here, there's a gear, that options gear, and Michelle will kind of highlight that. Then you would highlight, or you click on that, and then you have a sidebar that comes up, and then you can choose what field to actually show, or what column to actually show. And if you would prefer that field or column to be in a particular order, you can drag that with the little icon over there on the right side. I don't know what the technical term for that for that Rubik's Cube or Brady Bunch checkbox there to be able to click and drag those things around there, but you can drag them up to show them however you like to. And then you have some other options for invoicing. So the create, modify, or delete is the ability to do that. So create, obviously you would be doing that for adding new invoices. Modify is where you can edit multiple invoices at once, which is a really nice feature when you can utilize it. And then delete, of course, that brings up a a disclaimer, right? Once something is deleted, it can't be undone, right? So with QuickBooks Online Advanced, you also have the option of the online backup and restore service that's included. So make sure you activate the online backup and restore before attempting to delete and mass delete a bunch of invoices. Because if you did 50 invoices and realized there was some that needed to be those 50 invoices shouldn't have been deleted, then you have to re-enter them manually. But with the online backup and restore, you can just roll back to before that period where you did that, and then you'll be back to where you were. And you have search and filter. So when you go into batch modify, you can filter for a particular thing. So let's say you wanted to be looking for a particular customer or a date range. You can apply that filter, and that way you'll only be looking at the transactions that you do want to edit and modify in bulk. And then once you have added or start adding multiple transactions, and this is for all transaction types, not just invoices. So you'll have a three-dot button that you'll be able to modify or click on, and it'll give you several things to choose from. So you'll have duplicate for multiple customers. So this is great if you have a lot of invoices to create for the same amount. So like gym memberships or, I don't know, monthly bookkeeping, those types of things, where it's the same amount for multiple customers. You can duplicate that for multiple customers. What will happen is it'll come up with a new window, and then you can just select multiple customers from there, and then it will create the entire transaction from that. Duplicate entire transaction. So if you have the same customer that needs multiple transactions, you can duplicate that entire transaction. New transaction would be a brand new transaction. A new line item. So oftentimes when you're creating an invoice, if you just have one line, that's great. But if you have multiple line items for the same invoice, you may want to do that. So if you have 5 line items and you want to add a new line item, you can just click that button and it'll add that new line item. There's also a plus button in the product and services that you can also add multiple line items. Or if you made if you deleted or duplicated the entire transaction, and you want to delete that, you can delete that transaction right from there. Now these are, and just to point out, anything that you're doing on batch entering transactions is temporary, right? It doesn't record anything until you actually go ahead and click save, and Michelle will kind of point that out when she's there.
Dan, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because let's say you've got 50 different things that you need to enter. You know, I'm one of these people who I just like to prevent problems. So as you're entering these, I would actually save them every 5 or 10 transactions, because let's say you've done 45 of these that you need to enter the 50, and then something happens. You know, there's all these internet glitches, or your power goes out, or who knows what. You don't want to lose it all. So if you've got, let's say, 50 transactions to enter, I wouldn't do it all at once. I would do my batches in batches. So, you know, after you've done 5 or 10 of them, then save it. So that's just preventing
I mean,
accidents from happening.
And you had brought up a good point as we were coming on, you know, preparing for this particular webinar. You know, sometimes it gets a little, the new things, and you have got some nuances to it, and sometimes there's a learning curve with something new. You know, it's not as cut and dry as one might think. You know, when you're actually entering these in, so it's good to start small to get the hang of this. You know, I did too. You know, right before we started the webinar, you know, just to make sure it goes through, because there's nothing worse than having all 50 go in there and then it says no, none of them went in. So yeah, taking it in smaller batches is a good way to start. And then you can also copy and paste from Excel. So this kind of falls into the you know, importing option, right? So you'll be able to import from Excel, you know, in Invoices, but you'll also be able to copy and paste from Excel the columns, even for the other types of transactions. So as you may not be able to import a sales receipt, right, from Excel, you can utilize Excel and add those columns to be able to you know, to line up those columns and enter in multiple batch transactions. Now there is a limit. You know, I think it's 1,000 line items or 1,000 transactions. What do you remember?
Well, you've got it on a slide coming up. I think that's on import. I thought it was 100 transactions, 1,000 lines.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
You've got it on a slide coming up. One thing I want to point out, Dan, if you just want to go back for just a second, is you said how it's Excel-like, but there are nuances. And one of the nuances that gets me on those 3 dots when you want to click to duplicate or a new line item or whatever, because in Excel, you right-click in that column over there. I keep wanting to do that here in QuickBooks Online Advanced, and you don't right-click. You just click it right there.
Yeah.
So that's one of the nuances that keeps getting me. I keep wanting to right click on it. So anyway, you get used to it after you've had that problem a few times.
Right. So there is an article on the firm of the future with batch invoicing and expenses, why group invoicing improves the billing. So you can check out that blog article. And also, I think a few slides earlier, there was I think my Zoom control panel was in the way. There's a support article there that really walks through all of these things, included with a video that Intuit has created as an external resource for you. Now, I did want to give an honorable mention to Batch Reclassify, because you'll see that button when you go to edit transactions, when you go to, sorry, my battery's running low.
I'm sitting here checking mine that I'm plugged in, Dan. I'm like, wait, what?
Well, it'd be great if you plugged it in. I have it plugged into the wall, just not the, there we go. Sorry about that. So Batch Reclassify, when you do edit transactions, when you do edit invoices, you'll see a button that says Batch Reclassify. Now, this is an accountant only feature, but in Advanced, it's available for everyone. I think you have to be a company admin to be able to do that, to be able to get to that feature. But that does allow you to batch reclassify multiple transactions. Now, it doesn't you know, there's only a few things that you can change. You can only change the class or the location or the account of some transactions. Like if it's got a line item on it and that item is pointing to a certain sales account, and you want to change that account, you can't do that because the line item or the product and service is pointing to that. You have to edit the product and service to edit that. But transactions like expenses that are going to job materials and you want them to go to subcontractors, you can do that there's an access point right in the edit transactions. All right, so another poll here. So do you use batch transactions? So let's go ahead and launch that one.
And Dan, while they're answering this poll question, you know, I had some people or somebody who posted either in the chat or the Q&A, I don't remember. I don't use this, they said. You know, I haven't used this before. And so, you know, on the batch transactions, when might you use it? So I thought it was a good time for us to talk about that. And let's say, for example, you've got a client, let's say they're a restaurant or a bar or something, and they've got a separate point of sale system. I think Aloha is one that they use a lot. Let's say it does not integrate with QBO, or you just haven't got that integration working yet, because there are things that you can do to set up an integration with a third-party app with QBO. So let's pretend for right now, though, you don't have that integration. So from that third-party system, you might want to take all those invoices or all those expenses or whatever, whether it's, you know, a point of sale system or some other system, you might want to take those and batch enter them. Or let's say you've got a construction worker or somebody who's doing different jobs, going from, you know, different clients or different customers, construction, a plumber, electrician, whatever. They're out in the field a lot, and they go to the hardware store and they pay cash for something. They go buy gas and they pay cash for it. So they come back in and they have this handful of receipts for you, and you can't download them because they pay cash. So that's an example where you might want to enter batch expenses. You know, so there are some situations where you're going to want to do this. Now, along with doing the batch expenses, I would then train them, never pay cash for anything. Always use your credit card so we can download the transactions. So there are situations, though, where you may need to use this, and it's a huge time saver to be able to do this. So anyway, anything to add there?
No, that's a good point where, you know, if you needed to do, you know, transactions that, if you had a third party app that didn't integrate in, this would be a good way to kind of bridge that. If you get, as long as you can get it into Excel, you can, you know, bring those transactions in that way. So it is kind of a gateway to, you know, a bridge to be able to do that. It was also, you know, if you have desktop, this has been in desktop for many years, and that was always positioned itself as a way to be able to utilize transactions that are in Excel and get them into QuickBooks in groups. So similar type of concept. So being able to batch enter anything like this. And then there was also that case of, you know, if you have a multiple transactions that need to be recorded at once, you could send those out, you know, and create them that way. And then you also have the option of the recurring transaction. So any transaction can be saved and memorized and recorded, but this would be something that maybe that needs to be modified, you know. So if this is modified on a regular basis, then you can utilize it that way. So let's go ahead and end the poll here. So sharing the results here. So do you use batch transactions? No, is leading the pack. So hopefully we might be able to get some insight as to why. We have a follow-up question as to what would be good to improve, so we can provide that feedback directly to Intuit. So we'll talk a little bit about importing invoices. Get the poll out of the way so I can actually see what we're talking about here. So currently only invoices is the only transaction type. And yes, I did put it on the slide. So what you can and can't import. You can't add discounts, credit memos, or negative amounts in general on those invoices. So if you have something where it's an exchange, this for that, you couldn't do that, or put discounts in general. You can import a maximum of 100 invoices at a time, and there's a limit of 1,000 rows per spreadsheet. So so if you had 99 invoices and 1,010 rows on that, then it would not allow you to do that. Or if you had 101 invoices and 900 rows on it, either that way as well. You can import invoices with single or multiple lines. So it's you'll be able to do your multiple line item invoices. And you can also invoice or import a large number of customers and vendors and products and services. So that there's other things that you can import through Excel. And multi-currency is supported. So you can do this in multiple currencies if you have a client or yourself is using multi-currency. And so the basic process is 3 steps. One is to prepare and make sure that you have your Excel spreadsheet set up the way that you want. Intuit has created a guide to kind of help you with that, to make sure that your required fields are mapped appropriately, what that number actually represents or what that column represents on the form, and then there is a sample CSV spreadsheet that you can download that has those columns already in it to assist with the mapping, because the mapping is the next thing to do, is to be able to align your columns with the fields as as the invoice or the invoice is being imported. Phew, couldn't say that. And then it's a matter of importing, right? So you just prepare the spreadsheet, then browse to that spreadsheet, which will then allow you to map the columns to the fields inside of QuickBooks, and then import it and pray for the best. No, that'll just work, right? So that's and there's also an article a support article to that includes.
Let's
here.
not do that poll yet, though.
Okay.
Let's hold off on that.
We'll hold off on that.
Yeah.
So now we're going to do the demonstration.
Yes, and so let me share my screen. Let's see, which screen do I want to share? I want to share this screen. Sorry, I got to make sure I get the right one. Okay, y'all should be seeing my Craig's Design and Landscaping. Is that correct?
We see it.
Okay. Before I continue on, let me go ahead and answer. Carlos just had a question. Can I import digital files, parentheses, bank statements, into Excel and then into a batch process? There's no need to do that, because you can import those transactions directly into the banking center. So within banking, let me just show you that real quick. And so within the banking area, you can come click over here and see where it says upload from file. So when you go into a bank or a credit card account, download, your first choice would be a QBO file. If you can't get a QBO file, then look for a Quicken file, a QIF, or QFX, or an OFX. Quicken, Microsoft Money, last choice would be a CSV file. But you don't need to batch import those. You can import those directly into your into your banking area, where then you can set up those rules and apply the rules and all that. So I would recommend that. You're importing transactions that you can't upload into your bank feed here. Now, one of the things I want to share with you all, and so let me go ahead and mark that one that we answered that question, is if you will Google QuickBooks Test Drive. You know, we've got the test drive for our regular QBO, but we also have one here for advanced. So you guys can go out here in this advanced test drive like I'm doing. I'm in this sample company here. I'm in Craig's Design and Landscaping for QBO Advanced. So you guys can go out here and play around with it, especially if you're wanting to import transactions for a client. You can come test it out in here, make sure things are working, things like that, with a couple of them if you wanted to, or you can just practice using the batch transactions. So what I wanted to start with, though, first was importing invoices, because that one I think is a little more tricky and you need to make sure you've got everything correct. So let's click on Import Data under the big gear. When we click on import data, first of all, as you know, you can import your customers, your vendors, your products and services list. You can import all of that stuff as well. We're focusing today on the invoices. When you come out here, you can download this import guide to see the fields and how they match up to an invoice. You can download the sample CSV. I highly recommend that because that's going to put your Excel file in the right format. As you know, CSV is a comma separated value. You can open CSV files in Excel and you can save an Excel file as a CSV file. So you open this up in Excel, you manipulate it and all that. When you're ready to do your import, you're going to save that as a CSV file. So I've already downloaded that sample company and I've already put some invoices out here and I set up some pretend names and I've got some detail. And so one thing I wanted to point out to you, notice here, invoice 101, see how I have that number for 3 lines? That's because that one invoice has.
You gotta bring that over so we can see it. We're only looking at your QBO.
Oh. How?
So yeah, so we don't see that.
Okay. When I bring it over here, do you see that?
No. I think you're only showing your web. Maybe your web.
That's
maybe
strange.
stop. There it is. Now
you see it now?
Oh, it showed up there for a second.
You're seeing Excel.
Not anymore. It like
Okay.
went away.
Let me stop sharing and do it again. That's weird. Screen.
The glitch in the matrix.
There. Now do you see my Excel file?
We do now, yes.
And now do you see my QBO file?
Yes.
Yay! Happiness. Okay, thank you for telling me. So what I was trying to show you, see how I have 3 lines here for invoice number 101? That's because I have 3 lines on that invoice. All right, so you can have multiple lines. That's where Dan was talking about. You can import 100 transactions up to 1,000 lines. So that's roughly 10 lines per transaction. Now, some of these are just a 1-line transaction, like this invoice 1003. That's just 1 line. So you can have multiple lines for a transaction. But when you download that sample company file, it gives you all of these columns in the right format that you need for importing it into QuickBooks. Now, I'm going to go ahead and show you how you can import this. And I have some built-in mistakes. Because what good is it if everything works right the first time? Because that's not real world, right? When we go to do this stuff, we encounter problems. So I've built in some problems so we can talk about it. Now, one thing you probably want to do is add new customers to QuickBooks. Now, one tip I will share with you, if you are importing invoices from a third-party point of sale system, that means it wasn't a cash sale. So you probably do need to track those customers because an invoice implies accounts receivable, they still owe you the money. So you would want to allow it to add new customers to QuickBooks so that you've got those customers in there. So make sure you check that box off. Okay, here's where Dan was talking about map the fields. All the fields with an asterisk are required. You must have those fields. And you'll see it's already matching and populating because I downloaded that sample file. And you'll want to make sure that your month, day, and year is in the right format. If I remember correctly, when I downloaded that sample company and messed with it, tried importing it, it had the dates backwards, like from the UK or Australia. It had the day and then the month. So make sure that you get your date format correct. But this is where you do all the mapping to make sure you have your account mappings correct. This is where it says, okay, I saw you had a 10% tax rate out there. I didn't have the actual rate filled in. It had the said taxable, yes. So it's asking, okay, which tax rate applies? So I'm just going to choose California there. And when I go to import, it says, whoops, it didn't work. And this is what I love about this. When things don't work right, it says multiple customers were found on invoice 1001. On invoice 1002, multiple invoice dates. Uh-oh, let's go see what we have wrong. So invoice 1001, I have Chris Smith and my name in there. So that caused it to create an error problem. On invoice 1002, it said multiple dates. I've got multiple dates out there. I've got it on both lines. The invoice may be multiple lines, but it has to be just one date. So it will give you some mistakes as you go to import these. So I'm going to fix those, save my spreadsheet again. So you can see, I love how it tells you what the invoice numbers were and everything so that you can kind of debug your spreadsheet and fix those things. So I'm going to come out here and select it again, because I made some changes. And let's go through it again. I believe I got one more mistake that should pop up, but we'll see what happens. I think I left it as a mistake. Okay, let me refresh that. It got stuck. It does that when I go back and redo it. For some reason, it kind of gets stuck. I need to refresh that screen. Okay.
Yeah, so always a live,
Browse,
problem.
yes, yes. Browse. All right, I selected my file. And notice it is a CSV file that I'm importing. It's not an Excel file. You open it, work with it in Excel, and then save it. Okay, now look, so I got some things fixed, but I have some other problems. So it told me invoice numbers. Now it's telling me I've got a problem with my product and service items. These items, notice this, how it says category and subcategory. All right, see how, like, if you have flowers, roses, red roses, if you've got categories and subcategories, you have to include that when you're importing this. So let's go in and look at it. Let me just go to another tab in QBO Advanced, and let's go in and look at our products and services list so I can show you what's happening and how to avoid that when you all are doing this with your clients. So when we go in and we look at our products and services list, or the items list, AKA items list, you'll notice, okay, here's design. This is a category. Design is a subcategory of it. See how that's indented a little bit? And then I have design fountains. So fountains is a sub of design, and then concrete is a sub of fountains. As I come down here, here's lighting. So I would have design lighting, landscaping, gardening. When I scroll down here, then I have sprinklers are also under that, pest control. You have to include the subs. So for example, if I have design, design is a sub of design. So when I go to import these things over here on this one, I just had design. I didn't have the sub and the category. So I have to actually put them both in there. And when you put them both in there, you use a colon in between them. So notice on my rocks, it should actually be design rocks. Let's go ahead and look at that. So under design, as I scroll down, here's rocks. So rocks is under this category, design. So I have to have design and then rocks, not rocks all by itself, or you get an error message. Okay. So that is something to keep in mind when you're trying to import your product and service items. If you're using categories and subcategories, you have to include that on this, on your spreadsheet, in order to get it to import correctly. Otherwise, you're going to get that error message that I just showed you. Okay, so let's go back to import invoices, and we want to start over, and I'll just refresh it again, just to save that problem. Oh, did I save my invoice? Let's make sure. Save that. So I've updated my spreadsheet now. So let's go back over here. And of course, my internet's going to choose to be somewhat slow today. It always does that, right? Browse, find your file, and add new customers. Because Dan and I think I had David in there, we are new customers, so it's going to have to create some new customers when it imports these. Now, it's telling me, yay, you fixed everything. So it will give you error messages about your Excel file. You can go fix those things and then redo it. So it says we're going to add 4 new invoices and we're going to have 4 new customers. So Chris Smith, Dan DeLong, me, and David Toper, those are all new customers it's going to add for us when we do this. I click Create Import, and it's going to go ahead and import your invoices. Uh-oh, one of them was a duplicate. Oops, that's because I did this last night.
This will be a good way to show delete.
I should have. It says they have not been added. So QuickBooks is smarter than I am. It says, you dummy, you did this last night. So we only imported 1 new invoice. All right. It did add all 4 customers. Anyway, I imported some invoices last night. I should have changed the invoice numbers. But I wanted to go show you, if you go and look back and click on invoice, let's go look at our previous invoices here.
Because Joyce is asking, did it add the non-error invoice, or do all errors have to be fixed to do the invoice? So, or the import. So the one that did go in, did that get entered?
It did not. It'll tell you these had a problem, and no, I didn't continue forward. I went ahead and went back and fixed those things. Now, the problem I just had, you can see there, it told me 3 of my invoices have already been added, so it only imported the 1. But when you have errors like with the product or service item, it's not going to try to import those at all. It's going to give you a message. Sometimes it will import part of them, and it'll tell you, like you saw, 1 of 4 invoices were imported. So it will show you that. So when I click up here on this little search box, you can see here's invoice 1003 that we just imported. That was one that we imported there. Okay, so some of the things I wanted to point out to be careful when you're importing is download that sample Excel file. Make sure that you get all these columns in the right order. Make sure that you pay attention to that product or service, the item mapping there. I didn't have any locations in this example, but if you had classes or locations, I'm 99% sure you can import those as well. You do need, it says it's not required, but I really think it should be, and it is kind of required. You need to have a column to indicate whether that item is taxable or not. You also need to have that tax rate on there. You can have a service date for your invoices if you have that turned on in QBO Advanced. Okay, so as you're working with QBO Advanced, keep in mind if you have clients that are using a third-party system in particular, and it's not talking to QBO, it's not integrated yet. Keep in mind there's apps where you can set up and you can create that integration, so you don't have to do this. But in the meantime, you can get those invoices and import them into QBO using that feature. Now let's talk about some of the batch transactions. Those are going to be under the new button. So when you click on the plus new, you don't come over here for batch expenses or batch checks or batch bills. It's over here under other, because some of them are under the customers column like batch invoice, and some of them are under the vendors column for batch expense. So they've got it over here under other. Batch transactions will cover both of those. So as Dan showed you in the screenshot, there's different transaction types that you can use: invoices, deposits, sales receipts, checks, expenses, and bills. Now, when I go to, let's say, checks, I don't have an option to modify or delete. You only have to batch enter a check. Whereas, as Dan pointed out with invoices, I can batch create, I can batch delete. So if you just imported 5 transactions that were a mistake, I could go out there and delete those 5 transactions. All right. So let's say I wanted to go in and delete, this one and this one. I'm just going to choose 2 of them. I could go ahead and batch delete transactions. So if you imported them by mistake, you had something wrong, whatever, you can batch delete. That's a nice feature, I think. Now let's show you batch adding some things. So I'm going to go ahead and go into, I don't think you're going to batch enter invoices. I think you're going to import those. So let's pretend we're going to batch enter some expenses. Our client was out paying for things with cash. They come back and they give me a pile of receipts here, and I need to enter that. One of the first things I like to do is, as Dan mentioned, click on the baby gear here. Come in and customize the columns that you want to see. For example, if I'm entering a bunch of receipts that he paid cash for or she paid cash for, whoever, I'm not going to have a reference number maybe that I'm entering. So I might want to move that column way to the very end, because I'm not going to have that. I do want to enter a payee. I do need to post it to an account, the date, the method. Now, you'll notice there's 2 different possibilities here. If you think about it, when you go in QBO, and let me just show you this so we can show you. When you go to enter a check, an expense, or a bill, you have 2 different sections of that form. You have the category details, where you're posting it to an account up here. You also have the items details, where you're posting it to a product or service item. We have those same details over here when we're batch entering these. So for category, if I'm going to post it to an account, do I want to assign it to make it billable and assign it to a customer? Now, I like to bring that billable box after the customer. And let's just go ahead and put the tax down there. I like to say, okay, it goes to this customer, and then I mark whether it's billable or not. So you can rearrange these columns to put them in the order that makes sense for you as you're entering these things. So I like that, because when I was playing around with it, I'm like, gosh, that just seems backwards to me. So I come in here and you can rearrange it. So you could do the same thing here, to bring customer up above billable if that's what you want to do. Okay. Then when I apply it, it's going to change how this works. So here you can see my category details. And if you'll scroll over, you'll see item details. So once I choose, so let's go ahead and pick a payee like gas. I've got Chin's Gas and Oil from, this really should be like from owner's draw or petty cash or something if the owner's paying cash for it. I'm just going to leave it on checking for the fun of it. Cash. Here's where you choose, am I going to use the category details or the item details? When you pick one of these, it grays out the other one. So I'm going to use category details, and I want to tab over here. Notice how under items, it's grayed out so that you can't enter things in there for the item details. So under category, I can go ahead and choose. Let's see, I don't have gas and electric. They call it fuel. So let's type in and select fuel. I can put a description if I want. I can put an amount in there. Tab across. Let's pretend it was for a particular customer. And then do I want to make it billable or not? You can choose. And is it taxable or not? Maybe it's not taxable. So you can choose. You can come over here and put a memo in. Now, here's one of the things that I like. You can go ahead and keep tabbing, and it will tab you down to the next line. I like that instead of some of the other things. So as you start working through here, like right here, when I'm on checking and I click, it's going to pop up a calendar so I can choose the date. If I want to leave that date, just click a couple more times. It will take you to that next column. Choose how did they pay for it, tab across. Let's just pretend this is some kind of job materials and tab across. And so you get the idea, all right? You can go through there and do that. Now, here's one of the things that's awesome. Dan had mentioned this little feature over here where you can come in and say, delete this expense or create a new one, duplicate it. If you've got the same thing multiple times, maybe the same thing to different clients, you could do that. I can delete an expense if I don't need it. One of the things that's really nice as you're learning to navigate and move around in here, this little keyboard icon, come click up here and you'll see, aha, there are some shortcut keys. So to move up and down and left and right, you can always hit it says Alt or Option. So the Alt key in Windows, Option in Mac, I believe is how that goes. But the Alt arrow keys will move you up, down, and around and stuff. And then Control Alt M will open a row menu, and then Control Alt S to save those changes. So you do have some keyboard shortcuts in there. So I like that. You can go ahead and do, let me see, I keep wanting to right click on that. New line item. Let's say I wanted to add a new line item here, and let's just pretend we bought fuel and we bought some food. All these gas stations sell food now.
Yeah, don't get the sushi though.
So let's say we bought lunch while we were there as well. I could add that in there too. So you can go through and add additional line items as you want to. When you're ready, you can go ahead and save those things. And it says, yay, you created 2 new expenses. If you want to go in and look at them, you can click on that. It's going to take you right into your expenses. And you can see here was the Chin's Gas. And see how it says split? Somebody had asked that as a question. Can you split things between multiple accounts? So here I split it. Not only did I split it, but it was billable for one customer, but not on the other line. So you can split that out between multiple expense accounts, or if I had chose, I could have done that on the item details. I just kept it on expenses. Okay, so Dan, what kind of questions do we have before I just keep blabbing on?
So there was an option, or somebody asked, is there an option for it to create the next invoice number if you wanted to invoice the number with multiple line items? I suggested that's good feedback. So we'll give that to the short answer is no, but that would make a good enhancement to for that. And then somebody else asked, when you rearrange, like you click, as you called it, the baby gear, if you rearrange the columns, does it save that for next time, or is that you got to do that every time?
That's a good question. So I was just entering expenses and I came out and now I'm in the invoices screen. Let's go back into expenses and you'll see before it had the reference here and the reference is moved like I did. And when I come over here under the customer and then billable and then tax, so it is sticky. Here's that reference number way at the end. It remembered those changes that I made and moved them, and it's sticky. It saves the changes. So when you come back in again, you still have that there.
But that's per company. So, right. So
yes.
you would, if you have this for multiple companies, or if you have multiple clients using QBO Advanced, you would need to, redo that for each company. But for you, each time then after that, you would be, it would save those changes.
Yes. And here's a good question. Can you batch edit vendors to check off the 1099 box? No, there's not a way to do.
Yeah, this is for transactions.
However, and maybe David could tell me this, I can batch import vendors.
Yes.
If I batch import a vendor that's already in there and before they didn't have the box checked and now they do, I believe that would be a way to do that. Perhaps David could tell us yes or no on that, or Dan, do you know?
Yeah, I think you do have the option with batch importing your vendors. You could handle that through Excel, and export out the vendor contact list, and then just turn around and re-import it, after you've modified that column to yes, no, or whatever it looks like. And then during the import, you have the option to amend an existing item as opposed to trying to create a duplicate. So that would be one way to do that, but not through the batch transactions, but it is possible. Getting a little bit on the scope creep of our webinar today, but this is all in service to making things a little smoother and and more efficient. And as we pointed out earlier, it's there's a learning curve, right, to this, and this part of this is first learning that it even exists, because a lot of people answered that poll question that this is the first time they're even hearing about batch entering transactions. So first is discovering that there is that the possibility even exists, and then get in there and play around with it. And Intuit has been nice enough to put a share feedback button right on the form. And they do really want to know your feedback. As much as we, tend to think that just throwing that feedback is like throwing it over a wall and nobody reads it. They do actually read it, and quantify it and make changes based on that feedback. But just one person saying this didn't work doesn't mean that they'll be able to make a quick change to the program itself. So keep sharing your feedback. If you find a nuance or something that doesn't work, fantastic. Some of the things that I noticed when I was playing around with this is that there was something with the rate column when you're batch modifying transactions. Share that feedback with them so that they can make this better. As it may not work, right out of the box. They do want to hear your feedback and make that a better tool for us all.
Okay, great. And so Lizelle just asked, can you show how to split the expense again? Well, I'm here on a check screen, but it would be the same for an expense. When you want to do something like that, whoops, let me just clear this out. What you would do is you have one check number, one transaction date here. Let's just clear that out to make sure. But the big key is that you have two different lines, one for each account or one for each item that you have. So you just do multiple line items for the same check number, the same check date. Okay, so that's how you can do split transactions. Okay, so somebody had asked to show that again.
Okay. Carlos asked, he receives shoe boxes full of receipts, invoices, and other expenses. He scans all of them, needs to import them into QBO. Is there a center to import them directly? So there is a receipts, for bank receipts, as far as receipts, bill, expenses. That's the word I was looking for. Expenses and bills. You can do that by scanning the receipt or putting the receipt into QuickBooks, but not for invoices. So you're probably looking for those types of things. Some other third-party app that integrates with QuickBooks, like Neat or Receipt Bank or those types of things.
Yeah, and one thing I would add is if you got a client that comes to you, let's say they come at tax time, they haven't done anything all year, and they come to you with a shoebox full of receipts. I would not start with my shoebox full of receipts. Especially, I would ask them, do you primarily pay for things with cash or credit or debit cards? I would then go to the bank accounts and the credit card accounts, and I would download that year's worth of activity, set up bank rules and all that, then go look just for those transactions that were paid cash. I wouldn't try to import all those receipts. I would download the transactions, set up your bank rules and all that, because that's going to be more efficient, and only import those transactions that weren't paid for through the bank or credit card accounts. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense, because then you can use the rules to increase your efficiency that way.
And one thing I might add while we're talking about it is you can, in the banking area, you can send receipts into QuickBooks Online, and you can upload those receipts, and you can create a transaction from those receipts. Under the Banking Center, you have this Receipts tab, and you can see there's a number of different ways you can get them. Upload from the computer, from Google Drive, forward them from an email. Once those receipts are out here, you can create a transaction from them. That's just very inefficient. I would go from the bank feeds first and work with those that were paid by cash. So you can upload those out here.
Karen mentioned QBO receipts is so slow. So, right. So I mean that's a great point to be talking about efficiencies. Let the bank feed and the rules do the magic for you, and then work with the cash receipts. We are running in to the top of the hour, so I launched the third poll. Which of the batch transaction features would you like to see added? So it's a multiple choice or multiple option, so you can choose more than one. So whether it's more modify options, maybe attachments, price rules, multi-currency. Then we did mention that you can import with multi-currency, but batch enter with multi-currency is not fully supported yet. Discounts, bundles, and tags.
And one thing I just want to remind everybody is, a lot of you maybe were not aware of this before. You haven't played with it because a lot of you said, no, you have not done this before. Google QuickBooks Test Drive, and you'll find this as the top one. Go into that QBO Advanced Test Drive and play around with it. Once you feel a little more comfortable with it, then as you're working with your clients, you're going to see opportunities where this would be really great if you had the feature available for you to do with your clients, things like that. Some clients are going to need this frequently. Other clients, maybe not so much, but being aware of it and playing around with it can help you to identify those opportunities for using this.
Yeah, and so we'll have this recording along with the others in the QBO Advanced Deep Dive series posted on our on the QB Power Hour website. So look for that later, and we will. Let's see, we're coming up on the top of the hour. Let me end this one, and I'll go right into the next poll. But it looks like attachments is the most commonly asked for. So that's good to see. So the next one is really just, did you learn something new today? we always need that instant gratification, right, Michelle? We just want to know we're teaching people some new stuff.
I love Sherry's comment. Thank you so much. This was my first session and I learned so much. That's great. I hope you'll come back and join us for more. Dan and I always try to cover stuff to help you learn new things. And when we do finally get Hector, I know we've postponed the reporting one a couple times, but there's some great things that are available with the QBO Advanced reporting as well. So hopefully you all can join us for that one to do that as well.
Yeah, and who knows where I'll be next time.
Where in the world is Dan? You know, it's like, where's Waldo? We now have got, where's Dan?
Right. So thank you again, Michelle, for your
Thanks, Dan.
expertise, and we will see you all next time on the QB Power Hour.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.